So, hey, so because this is recorded, I'll just say make it official. So, hello, Christopher Titmus, um, one of my favorite teachers, Dharma teachers, and one of my first. So, I invited you to speak about, to have a discussion about the current war in Israel, Palestine. I would say I'm not sure about the word war concerning what is happening, and also not about Israel Palestine in Gaza, and quite one-sided in my view. We can talk about it, and also maybe we have time to somehow. I wish to talk about prayer, so we see if that has any place in what is happening, and so actually it's been more than 4 months since the 7th of October when everything exploded, which I must say, living here, it's a lot of time. Like I couldn't imagine. No, I didn't imagine. On the 7th of October, I thought what will happen in Gaza, but I wouldn't. I think I would never imagine what has happened. And since you've been to Israel and Palestine many times for a long period, and I've been in contact with thousands of Israelis, and I don't know how many Palestinians, but also Palestinians. So you know the situation. You've seen the escalation. You've seen many things, and you also been like reading your part of your autobiography, like saying how, in a way, close you've been to wars. Also close to like being in Thailand during what happened in Cambodia and Vietnam War and everything. Like it's not, yeah, like you have a perspective. And of course, most important for me also is the Dharma perspective. So maybe just to say first, like, how do you feel regarding what is happening now in our region?
Important question, and just on the personal for the moment, I take care with the input of the information which is coming in and from the media, and particularly with news and the visuals of what's happening in Gaza, as well as other sources of information. Of course, it's a horror, it's obscene, it's a nightmare. Perhaps we don't have the language to describe what is taking place there, and what has been taking place starting in this current round on October the 7th, and also all the causes and conditions that led up to it. So October 7th is a cause, but it's also an effect. And the effect is from previous causes and conditions. It's vitally important to know, explore, and understand the long history of this, and never to give a beginning to it as a particular day last year. That helps to open out a whole process of understanding. And I think what's important about that is, and this isn't easy because of the variety of views impregnated and conditioned into us, but it isn't easy to not take sides. And that's an important understanding. And from a Dharma perspective, it does not mean, in my view, not taking sides and not saying anything. It is not taking sides, meaning that there is no leaning in any direction which contributes to a binary or a dualistic mode of for and against, either direction. because in that, to my way of looking, there's a lack of clarity and a lack of wisdom and certainly a lack of love. But also, to be passive, one can't stand back from a Dharma standpoint and confuse passivity with equanimity. So some will take a more detached kind of view, well, that's happening, it's always been like this, human beings have always been violent, this is just an expression of it, etc. I don't see how that helps anybody. It's a generalized kind of viewpoint from a detached position, and plenty are expressing it, and I hear it regularly. They're in the Buddhist Dharma world and outside of it. So equanimity.
You are hearing it now abroad, or where do you hear it from?
I hear it from conversations. I hear it in the emails. I hear it in the views that are being expressed all over the world, all over the place. It's always been like this, etc. And the sweeping generalities contribute to a passive, detached response. And I say in response to this that equanimity is also about fearlessness. It is about finding and keeping faith with alternatives, with the views there, ensuring that love and concern and resolution is in the foreground of the consciousness.
Can you say what do you mean when you say resolution?
So what I mean by resolution there, resolution is a mode of response which is stating unambiguously the halting of the war, the halting of the destruction, and therefore raising the raising of the voice, and in the raising of the voice, to keep trust and faith with a non-violent resolution. And that means there has to be communication. And the more voices that speak of this without taking sides, there is more potential for some resolution. If we stay quiet, it's a lack of humanity, it's a detachment, and indirectly, those who do not speak up, they indirectly allow and perpetuate the violence in a very indirect way.
Yeah, this for me is very clear. And we have a question regarding, because I support and understand the view of not taking sides, being in Israel, Palestine. Not taking sides is difficult, and like being inside the situation. And maybe the kind of question I have about it, because I feel that there is something about the view which is not taking sides, which is like a non-dualistic standpoint, but that actually doesn't have to say, it doesn't have a specific way of manifesting in the world. It doesn't mean that because I don't take sides internally, what my action will be won't be like for me, maybe I feel now I'm not taking sides, but I'm leaning very strongly into kind of like, look, what is happening now is not, at the beginning I said I wouldn't say the word war, because I don't feel we're in a war anymore. That would be incorrect, because a war is something which feels like we're both here on the same page, or you're a bit stronger, and kind of like I feel we're completely not there like anymore. Maybe there was a first few days we were there, but I would say I think most people would say not taking sides, kind of like we're all part of it equally, and I feel we're not part of it equally. I mean,
Exactly.
it's completely not what is happening,
No.
which feels more passive. If you have something to say about that.
Yeah, please. Yeah, it's good, and very valid points here. It is the not taking sides has the vulnerability of the passive response. When we look at it, there is an overwhelming intensification of the infliction of suffering on the other, overwhelmingly at this point in time. And so therefore our priority is to acknowledge the tragedy and the nightmare of this huge infliction of suffering, being able to speak up with regard to it. And in Dharma, of course, that really means looking at the causes and conditions there and looking at what are the steps to resolving it. And therefore, the voice of protest, the voice of people who recognize the ongoing infliction of the suffering, keep questioning it. It is difficult. And one of the feeling responses with it being so difficult, and I obviously agree with what you say there, is because one can feel, or the group, isolated, misunderstood, frequently attacked and blamed, and that, making it difficult, triggers inside easily insecurity, hearing the abuse directly or indirectly from others. And in spite of the insecurity, in the spite of the strong wish to be understood, nevertheless, it's vital to keep the voice alive, spoken and written, and not watering it down in any way at all. And that may give, for a few others, a pause for reflection. And somehow or other, with the people who hold to violence as a solution, who subscribe to the view there is nothing we can do, who say we have to do this to stop them, some kind of questions, quietly, gently asked about men, women, and children. How would that person feel if she, he, or their children were facing day in and day out what is taking place in Gaza? What is their response if it was the other way around? What if it was a Jewish community entrapped in Gaza and an Arab community attacking? Something which helps to shift away, which is done not aggressively but kindly, may lead a way in to a communication. We really go on, sorry, yes, carry on.
When you say communication, what I mean, communication with whom? Who are you talking between?
Yeah, it could be anybody. So it could be one's parents. It could be Dharma friends. It could be people on the street. It could be a meeting. It could be in a protest or whatever. We really have to, I take the view that we have to keep learning every single day from every single conversation and every thought that we have, what are creative, imaginative ways to help networks of people build up a force to challenge what is taking place. And it's genuinely really difficult. You know, I live in a country, as a small reminder, which has been engaged in more wars than any other single country on this earth, including the United States. There, it's got a long history. Wars have been going on initiated by this country, perpetuated by this country. People think, oh, after the World War, there haven't been any wars. We are constantly at war. And therefore, the same situations you have faced is also here as well. I live in England. At the moment, it's extraordinarily intense because it's so close to you.
Yeah, I must say, when we were speaking about different emotions, I felt the intensity of emotions when if you wish to come closer to the situation, because some people just say, wow, this is just too much. Like, it's impossible to actually feel it. And I feel that coming closer, it's overwhelming.
Yes.
My feeling constantly is kind of, it's like a huge train which drives, and you're like just a human being trying to stop it. And you just see like seeing a huge disaster, catastrophe happening for me, and feeling, wow, what can I do? But regardless of the emotions, I want to ask you, because you've been also a writer, and you met, I must say, like from reading some of your stuff and hearing from you, you met quite amazing people in the world who did amazing peace work. So there is kind of like the small individuals, but there are human beings who can affect the situation. This is not like a God-made situation. And maybe understanding from you, how do you see something like this? How can it be undone in a way? It can be undone in a way of what happened, but can be come to some kind of resolution, non-violent, in somewhere. Like, how do you? Because like it seems like a really huge situation. Kind of like, my feeling is that in Israel we feel, when the US decides to stop the support, then the war will end. Something like this. Like I can see, like as a leftist, I can see any reason until like Israel occupies Gaza pretty much. So I wonder, it's almost like waiting for God, kind of like waiting for the US to say it's enough. But
it's true what you say from a certain perspective. And it's a perspective that matters here. So what I mean by that is, the moment we regard the situation as so big and therefore overwhelming, so much to deal with, and we might well be picking up on the intentionalities to wipe out, minimize Gaza or whatever it might be there. And that all of that feeds into some feeling of helplessness. And the helplessness is disempowering. We lose our power. And many people may disagree with what is happening in Israel, in their thought. May have the thought, I want this to stop, but not have the freedom in the being to be one of those who contributes to making it stop. So the thought is there, but the inhibition, which is fear, is preventing that thought which says this needs to stop. This is too much. This is going on too long. There's too much suffering or whatever. Doesn't get expressed. And it's going to take people who, like yourself and others, who have the thought and take the steps. And that shift is a small shift, but it's a shift of empowerment. It's a shift of the inner authority and the expression of one's humanity. And that voice, that which nourishes, and perhaps out of that, some steps will take place. The streets and protest is one of the important forms of all of this. It always has been.
Yeah. I must say that there are some things already happening. There have been protests, and in the last weekend there was a Israeli-Palestinian protest in Palestine. I must say that in respect to what is happening, it feels like an ant trying to stop an elephant. But I mean, it took 2 months until we could do it. And now it's been already 2 months that we can protest quite regularly, not too big, but it is something. And I wonder about the possibility to have an effect. And I also wanted to ask you, you said kind of in a way holding this perspective of this is such a huge thing, and then that makes me feel kind of like, wow, who am I to stand against it? Maybe something about how can you not fall into that perspective in order to actually be effective, or to be in contact at least.
In activism, it's probably one of the most frequent either communications, discussion points. And for me, just as one human being, that I feel if I engage in the viewpoint, it's so big and I am so small, and I impregnate it with the ultimate reality, it's the truth, and one is so totally convinced, it ends up weakening the resolve. Pay a price for this. And I am kind of, what should we say, determined enough not to transfer from my being authority to those who are so identified with the narrow-mindedness of the ideology of the nation state, and leave them with that authority. I just refuse to submit to it. And that refusal and that resolution means that the common humanity is at the core of things there, and there is going to be no sacrifice of the voice to give way to ideology of the nation state in this case. And we almost every day we have to remind ourselves of this and remind each other that suffering and its resolution, and specifically its resolution, small and big ways, is what our commitment is about. It matters more, in my view, than anything else. And not an easy one, but it's worth keeping trust in, and some fine people on the earth have shared that voice and taken the risks. Bless them for it.
So maybe I would like to ask you, because I feel what you just said is a spark of faith or trust. Not faith, but trust. When I look at the Dharma, so if there's not exactly what's the framing of it in English, but it's kind of like the dependent origination of liberation, right? There is kind of like dependent origination, and there is of suffering, and there is also the dependent origination of liberation. Like how, so it starts with dukkha and then goes to trust and then other links. So I feel like, okay, so in what you said, I felt there is this something which brings some trust of there is a way out, and that I feel is already a change of perspective, which is very important. I could really feel it when you were speaking, like when you also talked at the end of kind of like people who've done it. Like straight away came to mind Martin Luther King that I've been listening to in the last 2 months, and so I have a great belief in the power of specific human beings to create.
Just a minute, hang on a minute. Can I help you?
I'm just aware, because I'm going to be going at 2.
Yeah,
will you be on this call until?
No, we'll finish in a few minutes.
Finish in a few minutes, that's fine. Come
I'll
on.
be up.
All right.
She needs me. Yeah. Go on, carry on, Assaf. Finish what you were saying.
So I have a strong belief in the power of specific human beings to create huge amount of change. I mean, sometimes maybe beyond their own imagination. Sometimes I feel there are things from where I'm looking now that I can't see, but once I start walking, I can see a lot more, and I can understand I cannot imagine my power from the position I'm at, because when I change my position, I might have a lot more power to change the situation, but I cannot see it from here. It's just like because this is where I'm located. And I feel that this thing of having trust, and also maybe a bit more like walking with the trust, allows to walk on the path and realize those powers. So it can be political powers, and it can be also be meditation powers. Okay, that when you start practicing, you have no idea where you're gonna get to. So yeah, I don't know if you have something to say about from your experience, kind of seeing what is possible for us as human beings to affect on our situation.
Firstly, the very sound points that you made. And trust to me is not related to result. Trust that it will work out well. Trust that there will be a resolution. I don't like placing the trust inside the being on the outcome. I prefer in the application of trust is in the validity of what we express. I trust in what I say. I trust in what I write. I trust in what moves me to do something, whatever. That it's authentic, it's valid, it is the intentionality, the resolution, the suffering, to change the causes and conditions, and this dependent arising, and here are a number of you, bless you, in Israel, and you look at the situation. Primary wish is for it to stop. You're clear about that. This is why we're having the conversation, and therefore the nourishment that you give each other to stay steady with the determination to do everything you can for it to stop. And that shows a fearlessness because you're not afraid of these authorities, whether it's called the Hamas government, and whether it's called the Israeli government, and whether it's called their sponsors in the Arab world, their sponsors called US, UK, Germany, or whatever it might be. All of that one saying, no, no, no. Because it's all about feeding the ideology of war. That resolution is by mass slaughter. And therefore, we have a radically different voice. And we have to keep exploring and have trust in this there. And the numbers may be pathetically small, sadly small, but slowly, slowly, keep working, keep communicating, keep protesting there, get your renewal so you can engage. And numbers will come. They will come. Change will take place. These people are unfit. These people who engage and support war, the politicians and the prime ministers and their foreign minister and all the others, they're unfit. Because they're only in touch with the ideology, they're not connected with people. And that's the tragedy, and we're going to remind them of that. It's a huge, huge undertaking. Please don't get dependent on results. All right, can we do prayer next week?
Yeah, if you commit to meeting, yeah.
Yeah. I prefer next week so I can. Jude has got lots of things that she does for me every week, and before she goes home to see her daughter, I just like to have to go a few points with her.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, and a pleasure to talk with you and for your sound questions there, and keep the passion and the vitality alive. Feel the insecurity and keep with it.
Any message to your friends? Message to your friends in Israel, Palestine?
Yeah, of course. Lots of love, and never forget for a moment, liberation is also liberation of the voice. To free up the voice with the quiet determination as the great ethic of life to reduce suffering. This is the best of our species. Let's be in that noble tradition of committed to the end of suffering and not a voice to support it. That's what's noble in our life.
Amen. That was the prayer. That was a true prayer. That was a true prayer. I felt it in my heart.
Thank you. All right. Lots of love, Assaf, and absolutely delight to talk with you. And stay steady. And if you forget, just get hold of me quickly. I'll give you a solid reminder.
Thank you.
Okay, bye for now. Lots of love.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.